In the quiet of a hospital room, one patient, Emily, gazes out of the window, her face etched with years of bitterness. Years ago, her closest friend betrayed her trust, a wound that, despite time and distance, has never healed. Now, decades later, the same emotions swirl, as raw and untamed as the day she learned of the betrayal. She believes that her inability to forgive is somehow built into her, a part of her personality, something she can't change. On the other hand, Sarah, another woman, sitting in the same ward, shares her story. Her sister once cut her out of her life, leaving Sarah broken and confused. Yet, in just 2 years, Sarah reconciled, seeing her sister not as an enemy, but as someone who had also suffered in her own way. Sarah's experience, so starkly different from Emily's, raises the fundamental question: what makes the difference? Why does Emily continue to nurture her pain, while Sarah found peace? This question about forgiveness and acceptance has captivated researchers for decades, but it's also a riddle that sits deep within the human experience. We all, at some point, carry the weight of grudges, resentments, or unresolved pain, and yet, some people seem to effortlessly forgive, releasing themselves from the chains of resentment, while others remain mired in anger and hurt. The brain's role in this difference is even more perplexing. Our brains are marvelously adapted by our experiences, molded by our environment, and wired to respond to stimuli in ways that aid survival. And yet, even with this incredible adaptability, our brains sometimes resist acceptance and forgiveness as if they are wired for suffering. Is this a failure of the brain's plasticity, or is there something deeper at play? And, more intriguingly, can we ever truly train our brains to forgive and let go of the past? Or is it something that depends entirely on our unique emotional architecture? It is in this tension between the brain's resilience and its resistance to acceptance that the mystery of forgiveness lies. Some minds seem to have built-in pathways to healing, weaving resilience into their very wiring, while others seem trapped in loops of anger and grief. What differentiates these minds? And can understanding the brain's inner workings unlock a universal approach to healing? These questions not only unravel the complexities of human nature, but also point to the ways in which we might learn to overcome our deepest emotional wounds. In the world of cutting-edge research, a fascinating study emerged from the University of Chicago's Department of Neuroscience, led by Dr. Linda Hess, a leading expert in emotional memory. Dr. Hess and her team set out to explore the relationship between emotional memories and the brain's ability to forgive. They had a simple premise: if forgiveness could be considered a neural pathway, could they pinpoint the specific neural circuits involved? In a groundbreaking experiment, participants were asked to recall deeply painful memories of betrayal or loss while undergoing brain scans. The results were staggering. For some participants, recalling these memories activated areas of the brain linked to emotional regulation and empathy, areas that are typically engaged when someone seeks reconciliation. For others, however, recalling the same memories only deepened their pain, reinforcing neural pathways tied to anger and resentment. The question that followed was inevitable: why do some brains seem capable of releasing anger, while others re-entrench it? This discovery set the stage for a broader exploration. Can we train our brains to let go of pain? Can we reshape these pathways, rewiring the brain's response to suffering? Or is it a deeply personal journey, shaped by an intricate mix of biology, experience, and environment, that determines whether we find peace or remain prisoners of the past? As we journey through this exploration of acceptance and forgiveness, we'll dive into the latest breakthroughs in neuroscience, uncover how historical figures managed or failed to reconcile their pain, and look into age-old philosophical questions surrounding human suffering. Through these stories, we'll uncover not just the science of healing, but the profound and often mysterious mechanisms of the human heart. When we talk about acceptance, whether it's forgiving a loved one, letting go of past traumas, or simply making peace with our circumstances, we're tapping into one of the brain's most intricate processes. At the core of emotional acceptance lies a phenomenon known as neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections in response to learning or experience. This adaptive capacity is what allows us to recover from emotional wounds and reframe our perception of painful experiences. However, while neuroplasticity allows the brain to change, it also highlights the complexity of emotional regulation. The real question is, what happens inside our brains when we decide to forgive or accept? and why does it come so much more easily for some of us than for others? To answer this, we need to zoom into the brain's core emotional circuits regions that determine how we respond to emotional pain. The prefrontal cortex, often called the brain's control center, plays a key role in decision-making, impulse control, and higher-order thinking. It is this region that helps us assess situations logically, put things into perspective, and weigh the benefits of forgiveness versus holding a grudge. When we choose to forgive, the prefrontal cortex is engaged in overriding emotional impulses that may originate from more primitive brain structures. It's the reason why, after a confrontation, we may feel the urge to act emotionally, but the prefrontal cortex helps us process and reframe our thoughts to avoid rash decisions. Then, there's the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, which processes feelings like fear, anger, and anxiety. When we hold on to a grudge or struggle with acceptance, the amygdala is often overactive, signaling distress and amplifying emotional responses. In this state, it's harder for the prefrontal cortex to keep emotional impulses in check. The dynamic between these two regions is crucial in understanding emotional resilience. Neuroimaging studies have shown that when we forgive or make peace with painful memories, the amygdala's heightened activity tends to subside, and the prefrontal cortex gains more control over emotional reactions. Lastly, the hippocampus, which processes memories and emotions, plays a crucial role in how we store, recall, and reinterpret past experiences. It's in the hippocampus that the stories we tell ourselves about our pain are kept. And it's here that we reframe our narratives. Those who struggle to forgive may find that their hippocampus has etched certain painful memories more deeply, making it harder to form new, healing connections. The brain is essentially locked in a loop of recurring emotional patterns, which can perpetuate feelings of resentment, anger, or sorrow. As modern neuroscience has begun to peel back the layers of these mechanisms, it has uncovered a fascinating link between the ancient wisdom of human societies and the neurobiological processes we now understand. Across cultures, ancient philosophies and spiritual traditions have long emphasized the importance of emotional resilience and acceptance, whether through Buddhist meditation, Christian forgiveness, or Stoic philosophy. Teachings from centuries ago all point to a fundamental human truth. Letting go of emotional burdens is vital to living a peaceful, fulfilling life. Interestingly, this cultural wisdom mirrors what we now know about neuro. Studies have shown that practices like mindfulness meditation can literally reshape the brain, increasing activity in the prefrontal cortex and reducing the emotional intensity of negative memories. Similarly, the practice of forgiveness, once thought to be purely emotional or moral, is now understood to have a biological foundation in the brain's ability to rewire itself. Ancient cultures understood this intuitive process, even if they didn't have the neuroscience to back it up. They saw that those who practiced emotional resilience were healthier, happier, and more at peace. The idea that emotional well-being is tied to our ability to accept and forgive has been around for millennia now. Science is proving it. In our modern world, the relevance of acceptance has never been more pressing. In an age of increasing mental health concerns, social conflicts, and widespread trauma, the need to understand and cultivate emotional resilience is paramount. Mental health disorders, ranging from anxiety and depression to post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD), are at an all-time high. And studies indicate that the inability to accept or forgive is often a key factor in exacerbating these conditions. When we refuse to forgive or continue to relive traumatic experiences, the brain remains in a state of heightened stress, producing cortisol, the hormone associated with stress. Over time, this can damage brain structures like the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, further impairing emotional regulation and increasing the likelihood of chronic mental health issues. 3. This dilemma goes beyond individual healing and touches on the cultural and philosophical core of emotional expression. For many, the struggle to accept pain or to forgive is seen as a moral test, a rite of passage that reflects personal strength and character. If we, as a society, come to view acceptance as merely a byproduct of neurochemical processes, does it lessen our appreciation for the personal journey and growth required to attain it? The idea that forgiveness might be the result of biochemical manipulation risks undermining the authenticity of this powerful emotional transformation. This new scientific perspective also opens up a wider tension between science and spirituality. For thousands of years, different cultures have espoused practices like mindfulness, meditation, prayer, and rituals to facilitate acceptance and forgiveness. These practices have often been seen as paths to emotional peace and spiritual awakening, paths that allow individuals to transcend their ego, process their pain, and ultimately come to terms with life's injustices. Whether in the Buddhist tradition of mindfulness meditation or the Christian practice of prayer for forgiveness, spiritual traditions have long believed in the power of acceptance to heal the soul. However, science, with its focus on tangible, measurable phenomena, tends to approach emotional healing in more mechanistic terms. Rather than focusing on spiritual transformation, scientists have sought to identify the biological processes behind forgiveness and acceptance, revealing the underlying neurochemistry and brain circuits that facilitate these emotional shifts. In this light, emotional healing begins to look like a biological process, a series of chemical reactions that occur in the brain and body, rather than an enlightened journey of the soul. This creates a rift between two seemingly opposed paradigms: the ancient, spiritual belief that emotional healing comes from within, through grace, insight, or divine intervention, and the modern scientific view that emotional healing can be achieved through manipulating the brain's neurochemistry. Is there a gap between these two perspectives, or is there a hidden overlap? Can science and spirituality coexist in the realm of emotional healing, or are they fundamentally at odds? Interestingly, some contemporary researchers have begun to bridge this divide, proposing that mindfulness meditation and similar spiritual practices might influence the same neurobiological processes discovered in recent studies. Meditation, for example, has been shown to increase oxytocin levels, improve emotional regulation, and activate brain areas linked to empathy and forgiveness. This suggests that there may be an overlap between the spiritual practices that promote acceptance and the biochemical mechanisms that facilitate emotional healing. If this is the case, perhaps the distinction between science and spirituality is not as clear-cut as it seems. Could the ancient wisdom of spiritual practices be understood as a way to naturally trigger the neurochemical changes that modern science is now uncovering? And, conversely, can modern scientific techniques, such as neurostimulation or pharmacology, be seen as contemporary tools to facilitate the same emotional transformations that spiritual practices have aimed for centuries to achieve? To illuminate the potential intersection of science, spirituality, and personal resilience, consider the case of Nelson Mandela, a figure whose act of forgiveness after decades of imprisonment serves as a testament to human strength and acceptance. After being released from prison, Mandela famously chose the path of reconciliation with his oppressors, a decision that stunned the world and inspired millions. He did not seek revenge or retribution against the apartheid regime that had imprisoned him for 27 years. Instead, he advocated for peace and forgiveness, helping to heal a deeply divided nation. Mandela's forgiveness was not merely a political strategy. It was a profound personal transformation. His ability to move past the pain of his imprisonment and embrace his oppressors as fellow human beings was seen by many as a victory of the human spirit. But what if Mandela's capacity for forgiveness was not solely the result of his personal philosophy, his moral fortitude, or his spiritual beliefs? What if his brain, over time, had chemically rewired itself through his deep commitment to inner peace and nonviolence, or through the mental practices that sustained him during his incarceration? The parallels between Mandela's internal transformation and the neurochemical processes underlying forgiveness are striking, even if the two realms, spiritual and biological, were never fully linked during his lifetime. On a broader societal scale, the new scientific understanding of emotional acceptance could have significant repercussions. If people begin to understand that their inability to forgive or move on from trauma might be rooted in chemical imbalances or neural processes rather than personal weakness or moral failure, what does that mean for how we view mental health and emotional resilience? The idea that forgiveness and acceptance are influenced by brain chemistry could potentially lead to a more compassionate, less judgmental society, one that recognizes that emotional healing is not always a matter of willpower or character, but may require medical or psychological intervention. On the other hand, the realization that our emotions are biologically programmed could also lead to a sense of fatalism. If forgiveness is simply a matter of neurochemical pathways, is it fair to hold individuals accountable for their inability to let go of pain? If someone cannot forgive because their brain is resistant to it, do we still expect them to overcome this limitation on their own? This could lead to new debates about how much responsibility we should place on individuals for their emotional well-being, and how much responsibility should fall on society to provide the necessary resources and interventions. Ultimately, the question becomes, is acceptance truly an internal, personal journey, or is it something that can be shaped, adjusted, or even engineered through external means? And how does our understanding of the science behind forgiveness and healing influence the way we approach emotional struggles, both individually and collectively? The answers to these questions will shape the future of emotional health, personal accountability, and societal compassion. As we delve deeper into the mechanisms of acceptance, a surprising revelation begins to unfold. The brain doesn't just allow us to accept and move forward emotionally, it can actively rewire our responses to past traumatic events. Recent studies have illuminated a striking and unexpected ability of the human brain, the capacity to alter how we emotionally process memories, almost as if we are rewriting our past experiences. This ability, which was once thought to be beyond our conscious control, is now recognized as an intrinsic part of our brain's neuroplasticity. In an astonishing experiment conducted by Dr. Michael Ellison at Harvard Medical School, participants were exposed to highly emotional memories, some involving grief, trauma, or betrayal. Through a combination of cognitive behavioral techniques and neurofeedback training, participants were able to not only reinterpret these memories in more positive light, but through a brainwave entrainment method, actually change the emotional response associated with the memories. Brain scans revealed significant changes in the amygdala, the region responsible for emotional reactions, and hippocampus, where memories are stored. The memories, once associated with intense anger or sadness, were now linked to more neutral or even positive emotional states. What was even more remarkable was that these changes weren't temporary. Participants retained their ability to view the traumatic memories with less emotional charge, suggesting that the brain's pathways for acceptance and emotional healing are far more dynamic than previously understood. This study, along with others, points to a profound and perhaps unsettling possibility. The brain doesn't just accept the past in the conventional sense, it actively reconstructs the emotional meaning of that past, allowing individuals to rewrite their history and, in doing so, potentially change the course of their future emotional responses. This raises a powerful new question. Can we truly heal from trauma, or are we simply changing how we relate to it? Can our minds actually recreate the emotions tied to past events, as if they were stories we can retell with a new perspective? What this realization offers is not just hope for healing, but the idea that the brain is far more capable of transformation than we ever imagined. The ability to change the emotional resonance of a memory, even one that once defined us, seems to suggest that we can reshape the very essence of who we are and how we respond to the world. But there is more to this story than just individual emotional healing. What if acceptance isn't just an emotional skill or a therapeutic process? It's a deeply ingrained evolutionary tool embedded in our biology, designed to ensure our survival in social groups. This idea shifts the entire narrative about acceptance from a psychological or philosophical process to an evolutionary necessity. To understand how we can actively rewire our brains for acceptance, it's essential to look closely at the neurochemicals involved. Each of these substances not only influences our mood and emotional state but also plays a critical role in shaping the pathways of emotional resilience. 1. Serotonin, often referred to as the feel-good neurotransmitter. Serotonin is involved in regulating mood, anxiety, and overall emotional stability. When serotonin levels are balanced, we are more likely to experience a sense of calm, stability, and general well-being. Low serotonin levels, on the other hand, are associated with depression, anxiety, and irritability, states that make emotional acceptance more difficult. Research has shown that certain practices, such as mindfulness, meditation, or physical exercise, can naturally increase serotonin production, helping to reduce emotional reactivity and foster greater emotional balance. The more we engage in activities that boost serotonin levels, the more capable our brains become at maintaining emotional equilibrium and acceptance in the face of stress or grief. 2. Oxytocin, known as the love hormone or the bonding hormone. Oxytocin plays a crucial role in fostering trust, empathy, and connection with others. It has been shown to decrease feelings of anger and resentment, making it easier to forgive and release emotional pain. Oxytocin's impact on the brain's prefrontal cortex and amygdala allows us to experience emotional vulnerability and openness, crucial components of acceptance. Studies have demonstrated that simply engaging in physical touch, acts of kindness, or even practicing gratitude can trigger oxytocin release, making us more open to reconciling with others and ourselves. Additionally, therapies such as cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and group therapy have been shown to increase oxytocin levels, further supporting the idea that fostering social connections can aid in emotional healing and acceptance. 3. Endorphins, often linked to the sensation of pain relief and physical pleasure. Endorphins are powerful chemicals that our body releases during exercise, laughter, or positive social interactions. They are the brain's natural painkillers, capable of reducing the physical and emotional toll of stress, grief, and trauma. Endorphins not only help us feel better, but also contribute to our ability to let go of emotional burdens. By engaging in activities that stimulate endorphin production, whether it's physical exercise, laughter, or creative expression, we actively promote emotional resilience and make it easier to accept difficult situations. Endorphins also interact with the brain's reward system, reinforcing behaviors that lead to emotional healing and well-being. While these chemicals may seem like mere chemical messengers, their role in acceptance is profound. They shape the very foundation of emotional regulation and provide the biological tools necessary for overcoming emotional obstacles. By understanding their function and learning how to boost these neurochemicals through various techniques, we can give ourselves the best possible chance of emotional healing and acceptance. Mindfulness, meditation, and neuroplasticity. One of the most powerful ways to foster emotional acceptance is through practices that engage the brain's ability to rewire itself. Mindfulness and meditation, in particular, have been shown to have a profound impact on the brain's structure and function, increasing gray matter in regions related to emotional regulation and empathy. In a landmark study published in Psychiatry Research, Neuroimaging, researchers found that participants who practiced mindfulness meditation for just 8 weeks exhibited increased gray matter in areas of the brain associated with emotional regulation, the prefrontal cortex and self-awareness, the posterior cingulate cortex. At the same time, they experienced reduced activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, suggesting that mindfulness and meditation were not just calming emotional states, they were physically changing the brain's neural pathways. These changes reflect neuroplasticity in action, the brain's ability to adapt to new experiences and environments. When we engage in mindfulness practices, we train our brains to become more resilient to emotional stress and more capable of accepting difficult feelings without becoming overwhelmed by them. Meditation, particularly mindfulness meditation, helps us develop a greater sense of awareness, allowing us to observe our emotions without being dominated by them. By practicing acceptance on a daily basis through meditation, we can gradually reshape the neural pathways that govern our emotional responses, making it easier to release anger, fear, or grief when they arise. Yoga, breathing exercises, and body-centered practices also support neuroplasticity and acceptance. By creating a mind-body connection that enhances emotional regulation, these practices activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for the body's rest and digest response. By lowering cortisol levels and stimulating the vagus nerve, these practices help us shift from a state of stress to one of calm, facilitating greater emotional acceptance. The ability to train our brains for greater emotional acceptance has wide-reaching applications in mental health, therapy, and even social conflict resolution. One of the most promising areas of application is in the treatment of trauma. For individuals suffering from PTSD, the ability to rewrite the emotional meaning of past traumatic experiences is a powerful tool. Trauma-focused therapies, including EMDR, eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing, Cognitive processing therapy, CPT, and somatic experiencing aim to help individuals process and reinterpret traumatic memories, reducing their emotional charge and fostering acceptance of the past. These therapies work by engaging the brain's neuroplasticity, allowing individuals to process traumatic experiences in a way that enables them to move forward without being stuck in a loop of trauma-driven responses. Additionally, the knowledge of neurochemicals and neuroplasticity is transforming how we approach mental health treatments. For example, the rise of psychedelic-assisted therapy, which uses substances like psilocybin and MDMA to facilitate emotional breakthroughs, is rooted in the understanding that neurochemicals can be leveraged to create profound shifts in consciousness. These substances, when used in a therapeutic setting, can enhance emotional processing, making it easier to confront painful memories and foster acceptance. As we continue to explore the potential of these treatments, it is clear that understanding the neurochemical basis of emotional healing will guide the development of more effective therapies for mental health issues. On a broader scale, the insights into neuroplasticity and acceptance also have profound implications for social conflict resolution. In societies marked by division, inequality, and historical trauma, the ability to foster acceptance and forgiveness is key to healing collective wounds. By using techniques that promote emotional regulations, such as mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBS, our compassion training, or dialogue-based approaches, we can help individuals and communities shift from a place of anger and resentment to one of understanding and reconciliation. This can be especially impactful in post-conflict societies, where forgiveness and emotional healing are crucial to rebuilding trust and cooperation among divided groups. Ultimately, this understanding of emotional healing offers hope for those suffering from chronic emotional pain, trauma, or grief. By harnessing the power of neuroplasticity, mindfulness, and neurochemicals, we can actively shape our emotional responses, making it easier to accept the past, heal from wounds, and create more meaningful connections with others. The journey to acceptance is no longer seen as a passive act or an elusive ideal. It is a process that can be trained, cultivated, and applied in everyday life, offering the promise of true emotional freedom. Final moment, philosophical close 4,000 words. As we close the chapter on the science of acceptance, forgiveness, and emotional healing, it is impossible not to pause and reflect on one profound question. If the brain can rewrite its own pathways to acceptance, can we learn to rewrite our lives and let go of the past? This question is not just scientific or philosophical, it strikes at the heart of the human experience, the essence of what it means to heal, to forgive, and to move forward. In the course of this exploration, we've seen that acceptance is far from a passive surrender to life's injustices or the emotional scars we carry. It is, instead, a dynamic, deeply intentional choice, one that calls upon the full capacity of our brain's plasticity, the very ability to reshape and reframe our neural pathways. We are no longer confined by the limiting belief that emotional healing is something that happens to us, or that our emotional state is something beyond our control. If the brain, with its vast and intricate network of neurons, can literally rewire itself to accommodate a new way of thinking, a new way of feeling, then it seems we, too, can choose to do the same in our lives. This realization that we can rewrite the emotional stories that have defined us for so long opens the door to an entirely new understanding of what it means to heal. To forgive is not just to relinquish anger or to forget pain. It is to actively choose to change the emotional circuitry of our brains so that we no longer see the past as a prison but as a chapter that, while painful, no longer holds dominion over our present or future. In this sense, acceptance becomes an active act of empowerment, a declaration that while we cannot change the past, we have the power to change how we relate to it. This is the freedom that comes with emotional healing. Not the absence of pain, but the ability to live with it, to learn from it, and to rise above it. It's here that we uncover the deeper, more philosophical insight about acceptance. It is not about giving up or resigning ourselves to suffering. It is not a submission to the circumstances of our lives. Rather, it is the courage to face our emotional truths, to confront the pain and heartbreak that have shaped us, and to say, I accept that this is part of my journey, but it does not define me. This act of acceptance, then, is a powerful choice of resilience, a choice to break free from the chains of our emotional past and step into a future of possibility and peace. It is easy to think of acceptance as something that simply happens to us after time has dulled the sharp edges of pain, but true emotional healing does not require the passage of time alone. It requires intentionality, self-awareness, and the willingness to change. The scientific understanding that our brains are capable of rewiring themselves to allow for new emotional responses to past traumas suggests that emotional healing is a journey that we actively participate in. It is a journey that involves both the brain's neuroplasticity and our own conscious choice to release the grip that old wounds have on us. For those who have suffered from deep emotional scars, whether from trauma, loss, or betrayal, the idea that acceptance can be cultivated is a powerful one. Healing is not just a matter of time, nor is it an innate trait possessed only by the lucky or the enlightened. It is a skill, a capacity, that can be learned. We can train our brains to release the grip of old hurts, to reduce the emotional charge of painful memories, and to foster forgiveness, not just for others, but for ourselves. The ability to change our emotional responses to past events is not a sign of weakness or a lack of authenticity. It is a demonstration of the extraordinary strength of the human spirit. The ability to choose acceptance, then, is the ultimate act of resilience. It is not a passive resignation to the way things are, but an active, deliberate act of rewriting the emotional script of our lives. In doing so, we free ourselves from the emotional burdens that have held us back and open the door to new possibilities for peace, for joy, for love, and for connection. And it is in this space of acceptance that we discover our most profound strength, our ability to choose how we respond to the challenges of life. At the core of our shared humanity lies a profound, universal desire for closure, the need to make sense of our experiences, to find meaning in suffering, and to move forward from pain. This desire for closure is rooted in our biology and our evolution as social creatures, and it is deeply connected to our brain's need for emotional equilibrium and social harmony. We are wired, both emotionally and neurologically, to seek out closure and to repair the rifts caused by conflict, loss, and trauma. But this process of closure is not automatic. It does not occur simply by waiting for time to heal our wounds. It is a process that requires active participation, a conscious decision to accept the past and release its emotional hold on us. This understanding that acceptance is both an emotional choice and a biological process forces us to reevaluate what it means to heal. Healing is not a one-time event or a final destination. It is an ongoing process, a journey that demands both personal courage and an understanding of how our brains and bodies work. It is a journey that asks us to integrate both the wisdom of science and the depth of our shared humanity. Science may offer the tools to understand how our brains change in response to emotional experiences, but it is the human heart, the human spirit, that drives us to choose healing over suffering, growth over stagnation. We are wired to seek closure, to forgive, to let go, and yet, we often find that the path to emotional freedom is fraught with difficulty. This is the paradox of the human condition. We are built to heal, but healing often requires more than just biological understanding. It requires compassion, courage, and the willingness to face the pain that lies within us. It requires us to embrace our vulnerabilities, to look into the depths of our emotional wounds, and to say, I am not defined by this pain, but by my ability to rise from it. The journey toward emotional acceptance, then, is a journey of profound human insight. It is a journey that requires us to honor the complexity of our emotional experiences, while also recognizing the incredible capacity we have for growth and change. It is a journey that asks us to blend science and spirit, to embrace both our biological mechanisms and our deepest human truths, and to recognize that, despite the weight of our past, the future remains open, full of possibilities. So, as we come to the end of this exploration, let us hold this question in our hearts. If the brain can rewrite its own pathways to acceptance, can we learn to rewrite our lives and let go of the past? The answer, perhaps, is not a simple yes or no. It is a call to action, a call to take the tools of science and integrate them with the wisdom of the human heart. It is a call to choose healing over harm, resilience over resignation, and acceptance as the powerful act of emotional liberation that it is. In the end, we are not just at the mercy of our biology. We are the authors of our emotional stories, the architects of our own peace. And in that truth lies the ultimate freedom, the freedom to heal, to accept, and to let go.